Prashant is a serial entrepreneur on a mission to assist a billion Indians in their spiritual journey through the uniquely Indian startup Apps for Bharat. With 10 million plus downloads, their first product, the Shri Mandir app, is the world's first digital praying app. Prashant and the Apps for Bharat team have raised more than 20 million. They've been doing some very interesting stuff very recently. If you would have looked at on social media in Haridwar, please join me in welcoming Prashant to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Prashant, we'll start with the rapid fire. If you could be a professional in any other field unrelated to what you do, what would it be?
I would be a filmmaker.
We saw that when you were adjusting the video. So, wow, अभी भी कर सकते हो.
Yeah.
So, Prashant, what's on your bucket list?
I haven't seen the kind of scale that I always wanted to get to, which is half of India's population using our product every single day.
We hope that that comes true, and then we will point to this podcast many years later. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Always wanted to build something which is very, very massy from the very beginning, from the time I started thinking of building apps, building products. So yeah, that's something I would want to get to. Haven't got there.
awesome.
It's a long journey.
Prashant, bootstrap versus funded. What are your thoughts on that choice for building a business?
No, it depends on the ambition, also the audacity that a founder carries. Now, when I say you would need capital to build the kind of business that we are thinking of building, where we are saying that hey, let's get to many people, build a tech platform. Building tech platform involves a lot of cost. So hence, I would say, hey, you would need some capital. There's nothing right. There's not anything which is right or wrong, but the kind of businesses that or the kind of scale that aspires me would need some bit of capital because there's a lot of tech enablement that you would need. So yeah, I would say it is more about the ambition or where you would want to get to and how fast you would want to get there. I mean that determines whether you would need capital or not.
Your company's culture with three adjectives.
User obsession. Um, that's the first and foremost thing that has gotten us here. The second one is company is greater than team is greater than individual, which we uh, believe in. Our mission is above everything else. And the third one, which is very very close to me, is bring out of the box thinking, be a problem solver.
No, that
I mean, I
helps.
used a
I
lot of
mean,
words, but
we were
these
not
three
restricting in the
essentially sum up
words. I
our
think
culture.
the feeling is what we were looking for.
And what's one truth that few people agree with you on?
I think when it comes to building category defining companies, or it's, I think in most cases, it's ambition and audacity that are rate limiting for a company and the founder.
That's interesting. So not capital, not market,
It's
not.
no, it's always ambition and audacity, right? It's
Hmm.
always that.
Maybe we add two more adjectives to your uh, to how would you describe yourself to that. So that's good. That's awesome. And so Prashant would love to learn about your journey. You have an interesting background. You're an engineer and a designer
Yeah,
by training.
yeah.
Not just there are a lot of people who are engineers and then learned how to do design later. How was growing up? Early days, any seeds of entrepreneurship that were sown when you
Yeah,
started?
yeah. No, I think Avril, I've known you for a long time now, and I consider this and the audience of this particular podcast as my safe space.
Hmm.
And I'll put a personal story out that will give you a view into what I'm doing and why I'm doing this. So this
Right.
was um, a couple of years before I was born. My dad was working as a technician in HL in Amethi, and because of a vaccine reaction, he lost his eyesight.
Oh man.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and it's like this. It was a terrible thing that happened to our family, but it shaped who we are as people, me, my sibling, and whatnot. I'll take you a little bit more back. My family comes from this village near Kanpur. There's a tehsil called as Ghatampur. Ghatampur से थोड़ा सा पहले एक गांव है. There's a village of around 100 families, 100 households, I would say. and that's where we come from. Most of my uncles are still practicing farming. My dad was the one who was interested in technical education, so he took up a job in HL in 1986, and a year later he lost his eyesight, and then this was right after his marriage, and then I was born. Now, the first 6 years of my life were equally tough. When I was born, I was my eyes were diagnosed with glaucoma. So the first 6 years of my life, my parents used to take a train from Amethi station and take me to Delhi, and took me to AIMS every 15 days. They took me there for medication till it got cured. Now, we as a family were financially and medically going through bad times all of this while.
Right.
But my dad used to tell me one thing. He was like, um, because a lot of these things that happened to me, he used to be like, Bhagwan ka naam lete chalo. Whenever you feel low, whenever you feel bad about something, remember your God. He'll give you strength. He'll take care of everything. Just keep moving. Karm karte raho. So was something that he used to tell me as a child to even now. And and if I just step back, I realize that just that faith that things will be all right was all it took for us to travel from that stage in life to here. And I feel that's the story of an entire nation. That's the story of an entire nation, where we have lack of resources, we don't have enough means, but we are doing well for ourselves. We are growing as an economy. We are growing as a country. I think we are a brilliant example of how faith drives uh, a nation forward. This is my view of how I look at people and how I look at their behavior. Fast forward, um, my dad used to tell me that, hey, to be able to come out of this whole cycle of a lot of scarcity, all you need to do is educate yourself well. So did my BTech in mechanical from a state college in Kanpur. Then this was 2008 to 12. Then 12, I joined IIT Bombay to do my master's in design from Industrial Design Center. Getting into IIT Bombay changed my life. I'm deeply thankful to that school, that college. Everything that I have learned, um, when it comes to ambition and audacity. I think I had some seeds in me, but that place gave me a lot of strength, I would say. Because what happens is you're living in Hostel 5 and you see Ola being built by someone who used to live in the same wing,
Right.
or people in adjacent hostel building another large company and so on. And you feel that, hey, IQ wise, you feel like, hey, I'll be 80%, 90% there. So all it so so uh, what stops you to go and build something and whatnot? Another thing which is very very important that happened to me back at IIT Bombay campus was it was our orientation. My prof walks in and he says, "How much fees are you guys paying?" And it was peanuts, right? It was all peanuts. And
Right.
and he comes up and says, "Do you know how much the government of India subsidizes your expenses? And all of this is coming from the pockets of citizens of India. So when you graduate, don't forget that." Um,
Yeah.
so these were some of the things that actually, it struck me right on the face. I was like, wow, wow, never thought it this way. Now, graduated in 14, went on to work with Samsung. It was for an year. In Samsung, it was also an interesting journey where my job was to, there was this product called as Chat On, and we were supposed to compete with WhatsApp. It was a Korean app that they wanted to launch in India, and WhatsApp was rising. So they said that, hey, let's build this app, localize this app, and try to fight WhatsApp. I was part of a team that was supposed to localize it. Now that gave me a very very deep understanding of what India market looks like. I came from the same background. I came from that गांव खेड़ा वगैरह वगैरह जिसे हम बोलते हैं. But I started looking at India in terms of numbers, and then things started making sense for me. Then after Samsung, I took 8 9 months of break where I was trying to build a SaaS startup. It was a chat-based platform on top of commerce sites. Did not work out. Went on to work with Microsoft. Was there for a year. 2016 was a time when I was already looking for people to build with. I found
Right.
some friends back at IIT Bombay who were building something who were trying to build something. Teamed up with them, and 2016 mid was when I started something called as Trell.
Right.
Trell started as a trip advisor, but for mobile, for India audience, photo first, video first. Then the platform transformed into lifestyle content platform. But we scaled well. But 2020 early was a time when I decided to move out. And when I decided to move out, I started thinking about what could be a continuation of my journey, and I was thinking
Hmm.
about what are the behaviors. And I was someone, I don't know why, but I was someone who always wanted to build something which is very very massy.
Hmm.
Which I was always like, hey, many people should use it. I was never satisfied with a few set of people using the things that I would build. I was always like, I would want to build something that everyone uses. Haven't been able to get there, but that was a early ambition. You
No,
saying something, Prashant?
I wouldn't say you've not been able to get there. I think 10 million downloads is a big deal. Not everyone has it. Um,
When you look at a country of a billion people,
yeah,
you
of
still like
course.
think about the market penetration and whatnot. We haven't got there. I think
Right.
it's a long way for us, but yeah, I mean, it's a good start. Now,
1%.
yes, yes.
It's not a big. It's not small. It seems like it's not a big deal, but I think it's there are very few companies that are able to get that. So we've already
No,
gotten to a very large scale, but the ambition and audacity is good.
yes, I was about to come to that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think ambition and audacity is the rate limiting part, and I would want to push the bar
Right.
for all of us and so on. Anyway, so when I was thinking of moving out of Trail, I was thinking about what are the behaviors, because the last decade now, just a bit of a background, I spent a lot of my time raising capital from China for my previous company. So I
Hmm.
actually understood how China ecosystem plays out. I understood
Hmm.
how these Chinese. So I was actually 2019, almost half of the year. I was visiting Beijing and Shanghai, meeting a lot of investors. What I also did was I actually went on to meet a lot of investors in China and also helped ask them that, hey, can you connect me to the portfolio companies of yours? So that I would go meet them. I would learn about how do they build these companies. Where sitting in China, you just think about this, right? Sitting in China, where many of their team members don't understand English or the languages which are spoken in the markets that they're going to penetrate. And sitting there, they're winning Southeast Asia, they're winning India, they're winning Brazil, they're winning US. It is mind-boggling. I'm like, hey, what is it that they understand about app building, product building, which we in India don't do? And I was just surprised and very, very curious. And that gave me some bit of learnings about that market, which I started uh, thinking through and using it as a framework to look at ideas when I was thinking about my next move. Now, last 10 years, yeah, yeah,
Walk us
years,
through that move a little
yeah,
bit before you talk about the details, right? Like, what
yeah,
was the thought process? You're at Trell, it was doing fairly well,
yeah,
but you obviously made this
yeah,
decision. It
yeah.
sounds like that you're going to
And
I think
exit.
any learnings
we,
also, Prashant, from
yeah.
the good and the bad both.
Yeah, yeah. So I think back at Trell, this is 2019, and we had raised our Series A, and the team also grew well. We got in good set of people. We are four founders, equal shareholding, and I realized that the team, and there was a lot of competition in the space that we were building and whatnot. So I realized that the team has grown up well, and there was so we had different views about how we should build a company, and there's no proven way of what's the right or the wrong way. I wanted to build in a certain way, would not want to go deeper on that, and it was a mutual amicable decision that I thought that, hey, I should find something where I would want to apply my learnings and build it the way that I think would be the way I would want to build. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's when I thought about it. The company has got to a point where it has matured well. It has good capital. The team has that we are able to recruit good people. So I was like, that this is the time for me to step out. And I spoke to my investors at length, and I was like, hey, I would want to step out and plan my next move. And they gave their blessings, and that's how I thought about moving out.
Yeah. So now back to the framework. I think that context helps, right? So you're looking for this new thing, and you have this experience in China that kind of lays the groundwork for your framework. How did you pick this particular area?
Yeah. Okay. So my first very large belief system was this, that hey, in India, over the last one decade, which is 2020, from 2010 to 2020, in the 10 years, every behavior has moved online. I bought my first smartphone in 2012, and uh, and it had a few apps back then. Now made a few observations with respect to whatever those, let's say particularly in Bangalore, which is very well advanced. But if I go to my city where I come from, which is Lucknow and Kanpur, I have seen similar behavior trickling down. Which is, now think about media today. Now media, it would be TV consumption versus consumption of engagement on phone. You would see, I mean, the data is pretty much there, right? Say, think about consumption of news via papers, consumption of news via mobile again, the magazines and whatnot. All of these behaviors were gigantic shifts that if yeah, everything was moving online. Every behavior is moving online. People don't carry cash in Bangalore today. So I was like, hey, what are the behaviors that haven't moved online yet fully, and there are no large apps that are there in every pocket or every phone. That was my first view. I was thinking about, and I was trying to avoid competition, to be honest. I was thinking that, hey, is there anything which is left, which is very Indian, very core to people's life, and hasn't really moved online yet, and can there be a product first play?
Why were you avoiding competition? Why were you avoiding competition? I know it's in the startup ecosystem, a lot of people understand this, but people who are maybe outside of it, they don't necessarily understand why you should
Yeah,
go into a market which has less competition or no competition. It might mean that the market doesn't exist.
I have a professor whose his name is Peter Thiel, and I have read
Hmm.
his book
Who asked the
multiple.
same question that we asked you, by the way? Yes. So Professor Peter Thiel said.
So there were these frameworks on which I was thinking. I was not avoiding competition particularly. I was thinking about, are there any categories that are left which don't have a strong competition
No,
edge?
it is smart
Yeah.
actually. To be honest, it's smart. It's low CAC. It's less burn,
Also,
and you can.
I was also, I'm sorry. I was also thinking about, are there things which involve first principle thinking to solve a problem, and I was
Yeah.
actually more inclined towards, again, there's this kida that is there, right? Ki, hey, can you create something which didn't exist before? This was one frame of mind. I was also open to do things and apply my distribution first, product first thinking into other markets like fintech, etc. So I was actually evaluating bunch of things while I was doing this. So it was not like I started thinking of devotion first. I was thinking of many categories on what I could do. There were it, in this whole analysis, I was thinking about things which don't have a benchmark as yet, and I was thinking about what are the areas which already have a lot of traction, but can I then put engagement first, distribution first thinking to those kind of plays, and then do something. So I was evaluating bunch of things at that point in time.
No, that makes sense. So the two, actually, just to make sure I got this right, was competition, of course, and whether this was an open space, and the other one was just, are people actually using it offline, and so
Yeah,
then it
yeah,
makes sense totally that you converge on
yeah,
this and
yeah,
on
yeah,
prayers. Yeah.
yeah. And while I was evaluating bunch of things, and I mean, being a product person, I was actually testing few things out. So it so happened that 2020 quarter one, with a few set of my teammates back at Trell, we said, let's just try something in devotion. It was just, and this was more like, hey, devotion is such a large market, such a deep offline behavior, and there are many things that you can do when you think of moving this behavior from offline to online. And but the question is, what is that one hook or two hooks when you think of, yeah, where you start? And think about this, right? Every person, when it comes to devotion, is a subject matter expert, because they have lot of their biases, lot of their biases. Hey, my mom does this, my dad does this. I don't do this, but I think people would do this, and so on. So we were thinking about what are those high frequency offline behaviors that could be translated to online, and we ran a few experiments. So we built four simple 2 to 3 pager apps, and started thinking about that, hey, let's just see how people use it. Now, one app was a very simple almanac, which is a panchang app that we actually built. The second one was a literature repository in one place. The third one was Sri Mandir, essentially, where we were like, hey, let's try to make a digital shrine. And to be honest, I was Sri Mandir was where I was like, hey, I don't know whether it works or not. It sounds a
That's
bit.
the beauty of experimenting, right? You never know which one's gonna click.
Yeah, yeah. And the last one was a place where you could listen to music, literature, stories, and whatnot. Was something I was more or less content first apps. And again, I was thinking of engagement first play primarily because this was a trust deficit market in some way, right? Most of the apps that have been trying to build, or developers who have been trying to build in this particular space, thought of the users as a golden geese. Now, what they did was they said, hey, this user has this particular need, has very high epic meaning association to this whole problem statement. If I sell them something, they'll buy this. So most of the players who were in this particular space had a transaction first approach. Let me sell this, let me sell that, and whatnot. But what I understood about all of this is trust, having enough trust markers on the platform, and what you are building is the most important part. And I realize content and engagement as a framework helps you establish trust if you do it right. So I was always thinking of engagement first place, and also other things that, right? When I was doing my business design of this, or not business design, I was just thinking about users and their needs and how to move online. I realized that our average user spends in multiple places throughout a year. So I would spend on buying literature. I would spend on setting up my home temple. I would spend on consumables. I would spend on getting a puja done. I would spend on consultation. I would spend on many, many things. But it is very unlikely where you spend on the same thing over and over again, which means the business, yeah, it will actually, so yeah, so I was thinking whatever it will be, people will engage on something, and then there'll be services, and people will engage on those services over a long period of time. That's the kind of platform I was able to deduce by talking to the people who started using some of these apps. And I'll tell you what happened. So all the four apps that I actually launched, I was just noticing one thing. What is that app that creates a wow followed by strong recall in the initial engagement period and has good retention in the first phase of usage? Now, of all of these apps, the app that created the highest wow was the digital shine on my phone platform.
Can you tell us
Has
how
the
you measure that though? How do you know the most wow? Like what was the metric you were looking at?
two things. So I had a on the hamburger, I had a link where a user could send me WhatsApp messages. That was my number, which was attached there. Two was reviews of the app. Um, Three was just data. So this is how I was measuring this. And the fourth was um, primary research by calling some of these users. So using these four ways, we were able to determine um, what creates a wow, what creates this recall. Now, wow was where when I started receiving messages where people were like, "Hey, thank you so much for making such a beautiful product, whatnot." So that was the first kind of the kind of feedbacks I started getting. I was like, is this happening where people are saying this is a very, very simple gimmicky sort of product? To be honest, and I would be, I'll not be ashamed to say, hey, when I started thinking of this, I have too many biases that, hey, why would people prey on the phone? That sounds stupid, cannot really happen, it can't be happening. uh, so people started saying a lot of nice things. We started getting reviews where people like, hey, thank you so much for changing my life. I feel more empowered. I feel that strength. Whenever I feel low in my life, I open the app and I just look at the feet of the God and I just close my eyes. And I was like, wow, the kind of feedback I was receiving was something that I never got in my life, to be honest. Right? In the last 10 years of me trying to build apps, whatever I built did not get this profound feedback. And I thought that, hey, there is meaning to what we're building here. There is this profound love, which I was always trying to find, but never found it. And I knew the answer that, hey, I have to now keep building this. So when people ask me why devotion as a category, the answer that I have for each one of them is it was just user love and how profound it was. In my life, I realized that, hey, I would go on and work at any large corporate because I have done previously. And what I'll do there is I'll figure out a way for people to click on an ad or to buy something that they would not need. This is the first thing I'm building where people are, it is giving this profound happiness to people. This whole, you know, this whole magic that it creates in their head where they feel this pleasure and joy and this happiness was something I was able to see through the feedback that they were giving me. And I was like, this should be built. Now, when I was looking back, I realized that my family, my background, my journey was also similar, where आस्था ने हमको शक्ति दी एक तरह से, right? As a family and so on. And I was like, let's, and bunch of dots connected for me. So I actually, what I did was I went back, and this was a experiment was done within Trail as part of an experiment pod, and many more other experiments we were doing. So I took the product out, went to my board, and I said that, hey, I would want to take this app out along with me. As part of that particular transaction, I took the product out, gave a significant part of my company to the company, to Trell, and took this app out. And I was very happy that when we started seeing the kind of user love we were seeing, we actually got the backing of the investors who actually backed the previous company. So Sequoia and BNext, who were my early investors in the previous company, came on board again and backed us again, on this one as well. Now, this is how the whole journey was. And honestly, this is slightly poetic, but when I started thinking of building this particular space, and I started running my experiments, I thought it was a green space. I was like, hey, let me walk. It looks like a beautiful pond. Let me walk closer to it. But as I am approaching that water body, it is turning out to be an ocean, and it's not a pond. Yeah. So, so yeah.
Why do you think there were so few players, Prashant? And I believe that people think of ideas where so many of us. Any sense on why there were fewer players, or almost none in the category?
I'll tell you my learning from China in this one. A Chinese founder
Hmm.
is very true to the market and user need. See, it is changing. I'm not comparing, right? It is changing. But think about us, right? Avril, we come from the same campus. If you think of a young graduate
Hmm.
who comes out of the campus and you tell him that, hey, you are starting up something, which space you would want to start up in? People would definitely pick
Hmm.
something which makes them sound cool in a social setting. So
Correct.
if I were to tell you that, hey, uh, go build for go build something which is X or Y, which, and X might sound cool in a social setting, you will find more people opting for it. See, these things are changing. I
Yeah,
mean,
unsexy
what
markets are open.
or open. I think the people
Yeah.
who have done beautifully well, and I would say the people who have created this whole category for all of us are the founders of ShareChat, founders of Pratilipi, and many more people who have attempted this. I feel there the market which was, these words were not even coined. These people actually went on and uh, built something for the space, and I think it started opening up. And I would say uh, that is very much required. So I think when it comes to devotion also, right, there are two things, right? We all essentially, another view that I have is, we all essentially, most of the founders that you see in India are engineers by training. And what happens then is, you start putting your lens of the science and say that, hey, is this a practical need? Or then there's this whole sense of
Yeah.
superiority or
It's not
inferiority and
compatible
whatnot.
with your engineer brain, right? Devotion. I think
Yeah,
that's a really
yeah,
interesting point.
yeah,
That's a really interesting.
yeah. But this is where my design training helps, where I feel that, hey, it's a user need, and my job is to build for the user without judging the user. So my job is very simple, right? If there's a user need which is large enough and the user is craving for that particular platform, I should be non-judgmental about his need and solve for it. And I've seen, right, think about China for a bit, right? The things that they did with live streaming, dating, tipping, lot of companies which made tons of money that we look up to and say, hey, there's this thing happening on that platform, that thing happening on the platform, and we look at it in a slightly judgmental way. Those founders are unapologetically going after those opportunities and just cracking it wide open. Why? Because, very capitalist and very user centered. It's happening in India. I'm very happy it's happening in India. I actually meet a lot of founders who are actually going after these very Indian needs, which are uniquely Indian. Will not see parallels in the US or in China, and people are going for it. And I'm very happy that it's happening. It's happening.
That's awesome. And what were early days once you started Apps for Bharat? How did you go about acquiring your first 1,000 users, and then when did it reach a million, and how was that process?
Yeah, see, I think for us, um, I would not want to. When I look back, I'll be able to tell that hey, it's approach or this approach is right or wrong. But the approach that we followed was we were a very lean team for the first 1 year of the journey. So our funds hit our bank in May 2021, and we started building this in the Q1 of 2020, where the first set of experiments that were live. 2021 January was when we made the product open for everyone to use, and till then it was a limited audience and whatnot. So what we did was we used to spend 1,000 rupees on Facebook, show this banner ad to people that hey, here's this devotional platform, try it. That was the way where we wanted to, and we wanted to keep the ad very very generic, where we wanted to just pick the audience based on interest and then understand their user journeys and then evolve the platform accordingly. I'll actually comment on how exactly the platform evolved. So the Sri Mandir, which is digital shrine on your phone, was a use case that actually picked up well. But it was not enough because the early engagement was good, but the long tail engagement was not so encouraging, I would say. But then what we did was in the same way, right? In the hamburger menu, actually had put something which is called Sujhav Bheje. It still is, and every single day I look at those feedbacks very diligently. So the people who are power users, they came back and said, "Hey, this is great, but why don't you add music on the platform? Bhajan, mantra, sab Bhagwan ke hisab se aap add kar do." So what we did was we just kept on doing that. Where whatever people said, right? They said add audio, add stories. We did that. People then came back and said, "Hey, why don't you add literature to this?" So we said, "Perfect. Let's add a lot of Hindu Sahitya and literature to this particular platform." Then people came and said, "Hey, this is fantastic. Why don't you also put a panchang to this? Because this is what I would do in my home setting and whatnot." And a lot of these requests came our way. What we did was we just aggregated every single thing on the app and just put it in front of the users and saw how power users are using it, and then started optimizing the user journeys. So this is how the platform evolved, where the first thing was listen to the user, aggregate everything that he says he wants, then look at the power user behavior with respect to adoption, and then evolve the platform accordingly. This is how the journey was. And for all of this, the acquisition was very simplistic. We kept on spending $1,000 every single day on Facebook. Then it became 2,000, then became 5,000. That's the kind of number. And then we kept on acquiring these users and kept on evolving the platform. I think, see, the challenge with Hinduism is that it's a multivariable problem. Now, users across ages, across region, practice differently, and their practice frequency is also different. My mom might practice twice a day, every single day. Someone else might practice some other thing once per day, every single day. Some of the people might do it weekly. So a lot of people on our platform open the app only on Tuesday because they are believers of Lord Hanuman, and they would pray to Lord Hanuman and would not use the app again. There's some people who would just who would just connect with devotion only on the days of festive importance. There's some people who might do it on only on large festivals. So this is how the audience is spread, and this is how their usage is.
But it's a
So
pretty
hence,
big difference, right, between a typical
yeah,
e-commerce journey where it's very
yeah,
predictable and everyone
yeah,
goes through the same steps. It's such a
yeah.
different user journey.
I think this is where the moat will come. Once a platform is able to figure out this journey and figure it out in a way where they would be able to serve a large percentage of the time, I think that platform will arrive. I would say we are still in the works, but I think that's where the multi-variable problem about Hinduism is. If someone is able to crack it very, very well, and I think we are close, um, it's a moat in itself, because that understanding, that set of insights, that data is the main bank. Is the main bank.
No, just incredible. Like, can you walk us through maybe some more of the insights that you've seen? You're obviously very data-driven in your approach. You started off with experiments. As you've grown, what are some interesting insights from user behavior?
Okay. The first one is, um, so what we did was if you look at the Sri Mandir app, it looks all the images that we have used, they look slightly dated. There's a lot of skeuomorphism on the app and whatnot. Now, We tried a very modern view to the app as well. Did not work out. The adoption dropped. When we spoke to the users, they said that, hey, for me, Ma Saraswati looks like this. And so exact, it's like this, right? At schools, at schools, जब बसंत पंचमी होती है, so we have the same frame which was painted by some artist 100 years back, which is used as a reference image for Ma Saraswati, which is the mass adoption image of how Ma Saraswati would look like, and that became popular. So for me, if I would present you it in a more modern art, uh, you might not like it because it doesn't trigger the same feelings as that figure would do. Same way for Lord Hanuman, for Lord Shiva and whatnot, right? So we realized you have to confirm with people's belief systems and biases. You cannot build a platform which is all new and all modern and whatnot. So, for example, the way in which people pray on the app look like a shank would look like a shank, a flower would look like a flower, and a lot of these things look slightly dated because it confirms. And it's not that the users on the platform are not young. There are a lot of people who are young who are using this particular app. But again, the way they think about devotion, the way they think they have been practicing it at their homes, you have to bring that on the app. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the product that you are building has to cater to tech savvy and not tech savvy users, not so tech savvy users at the same point in time. Because when it comes to devotion, Ambanis are devotional, so is the person who is heading ISRO today. So is the case with people who are, let's say, um, are owning a small shop to people who are driving a rickshaw. So it's more about belief. There is no economic barrier or economic segregation when it comes to devotion as a practice. Now, so hence one challenge that we always face is, but I'll give you a simple example, right? So we realized we have people come and listen to audio stories on the app, and there's this thing that you would see on Spotify to YouTube Music where there's this icon which looks like a circle that has arrows. What does that mean? That means I can play this particular song or audio once, or I could play the whole loop, or I could play it just once and not repeat it ever again, sort of, right? So there's this logic that you put. Now, when we put it, some audience adopted it very, very well, and the ones who were low tech savvy, they were struggling with it. Now what we did was we innovated on as simple on items as simple as this. So when you click on that particular icon on the app, it gives you options which says ek bar sune. If you're using the app in English, it will say listen once, listen again and again, and so on. So essentially, we actually made it more direct and explicit versus making the whole iconography to communication more implicit and assuming that the user will understand it. Now the challenge is that if you are addressing this large TAM, your product should essentially solve for these diverse level of tech savviness and evolve accordingly. Now it's a long journey for us. Now the same way, right? We realized when we spoke to our users, they gave us a lot of these striking insights. For example, if there is a user who is using the app only on let's say only on Tuesday, if you bother him on a Monday, if you bother him on a Friday, he would say, "I'm installing this app."
Yes.
This is just crazy, we were like, uh, this is how beautiful this problem statement is. So I've fallen in love with this particular problem statement. So we have written our the where we would want to get to in ink and our strategy in pencil, because we would want to be important in the lives of our users. The part doesn't matter.
How you get there and what doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Okay.
yeah,
How do you monetize, Prashant? Is there? It's been a tough category to monetize. Any thoughts on that?
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. So this monetization journey for us started less than a year back, where what we did was we were like, hey, we have solved for a few engagement loops on the app, and we were like, how should we monetize these users? Ad was an absolute no-no. Anyone who is in this particular space, or any space which is around devotion and which, or any space which requires a user to come in a certain mental setting and practice that while the engagement session is going on. They should not use ads as a mechanism to monetize because it breaks that flow. So we realize that for my user,
Right.
if he's coming to listen to or read something, and he's in that mode, in that frame of mind, and imagine there's this skincare ad, there's this ad, that ad, and whatnot, which breaks the flow, it is detrimental to that whole experience that you're trying to create on the app. So we like no ads ever, no ads ever. So, so what we did was we had to then think about what is that way where we can actually monetize our users. So that's when we started asking our users,
Hmm.
what do you need from us? What more do you need from us? And a lot of these answers came from them. Now we realize that because of the way we treated them, they trust our platform, and they start telling us some of these behaviors. They said that, hey, what happens is, if one of my relative in my family is going to, let's say, Mansa Devi temple in Haridwar, and I went there 5 years back, and it's an important day, I would take 500 rupees out, put it in his hand, and say, when you go there, can you make an offering in my family's name? Can you do
Hmm.
that? Now, that whole money that is preserved for this particular activity can only be pulled out when a relative of yours is going out. And they realized that's an important need for the user. And if we can build a mechanism to solve that, it will be great. So what we did was we started identifying temples where people have their beliefs in. And what we do is, let's say it's Avril's birthday, a low frequency use
Hmm.
case where your mom would be like, we believe in this temple, we would go there once in a lifetime, but because it's Avril's birthday, here is this 100 rupees. Why don't you offer a basket of flowers for Avril's well-being and
Hmm.
get it done for me? So what we did was we went an extra mile, and we said that, hey, for all the offerings that you're going to do, we'll also give you a proof in form of a video where the priest will actually do the offering, record a video with your name in it, and send it back to you. That's where another insight came. Where what we did was we realized that when we first did it, there was no proof, and the NPS was 45, 50, 55. Then we decided giving a photo, it became 60, 65. We gave a video, it became 70, 75. And then when we gave a name where the person is saying that, hey, he recites a nice mantra and say, Bhagwan Aviral ka bhala kare, God bless him, vagara vagara. And that video is recorded. And when your mom would listen to this particular video, where your name is taken in front of the shrine, that delight for the cost she pays is it's
Right.
just crazy. And that's where we feel
Right.
that's the first thing that we're doing. So bridging that access is the first part that we're solving for.
Hmm.
So couple of our business lines are actually, or revenue lines are coming from that, where our goal is, you create an ecosystem of trust, you serve the users with all your heart and all your might, and they would make sure that you survive and you become a generational company. So these are the couple of ways that we have tried monetizing. What we have also a couple of digital ways of monetizing. See, there are two, three behaviors where people actually set up their digital shrine. So people pay for upgrading the skin of the god and whatnot. So that's one way that we monetize. Other one is these services, and we're building a suite of services. So whatever I told you in the beginning, right? People spend in 4 or 5 different places when it comes to their devotional belief systems in a year. We would want to be a platform for all of those needs, however hard it is. We would want to be that platform that serves them well, that serves them with respect, serves them with lot of care. That's where we would want to get to. So yeah, I think the monetization part that we have started a year back has grown very, very well. There's a lot of potential, and the I mean it's going well for us.
And going the extra mile, you've also started collaborating with governments and religious authorities. In fact, you were in Haridwar recently.
Yeah.
Um, how did you win that trust? How much time did it take? You have to work with temple authorities, governments, people who have very little time on their hands. Why would they even trust someone like
Yeah.
you? How was that?
Just think about this, right? So if there's a large temple in India, they would have 50-60,000 people visiting them every single day. We are 10 to 15x larger in terms of visitor count every single day. So even though we are in cloud, we're the largest temple in India, just by visitor count.
Right.
Now, when we went
Right.
to these temples 1.5 years back, no one entertained us, because when a temple has more traffic than you, and you have not and you have not achieved anything which is significant, why would they even pay heed? Who are you? But when you go to them and say that, hey, on the Hanumanji shrine, the number of people who visit us is this, and we also have this part in the app which you and your community can leverage, they listen to you. So I think that whole trust and audience love that we have gained helped us have the first conversation. Now, if you think about this, right, again, um, there's a we are a very mission driven org. No, I'm not saying that I'm not in it for making money or value for my team, for my users, for my stakeholders and whatnot. I'm not saying that. But when and you would need that if you would want to, you would want to change this behavior forever. So I'm actually, when I go and drive these conversations, I'm actually super honest with respect to why I'm starting this, what's the kind of platform I would build, how you can leverage it. This part is absolutely free, this part involves a cost. So when I was meeting a lot of these authorities, and I did a lot of groundwork with respect to that, now I realized that they have certain set of needs. The first need that they have, so there are two kinds of temples. The temples which have already become very, very large, very, very large. They are like an institution in themselves, huge institutions, which also contribute to people in various nice ways. They would uh, they would get that money and they would spend that money in various public welfare services and whatnot, and developing the infrastructure and whatnot. But there are tons of temples, or I would say tens of thousands of temples, which have this historical and cultural significance, but that story has not come out. So think about this, right? All the temples that you think have become large today have become large because of certain marketing or certain word of mouth that spread around them, which helped them spread their story to people. For example, there's this, think about Kalchi Dham, for example. Think about Tungnath Mandir, and many more of these temples, which, if you look at it, right, were very small a decade back. But because they were able to find engagement through an influencer, and that influencer could be Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, or it could be people going and shooting a video of it and showing it to people on Instagram. The popularity picked up because of X, Y, and Z reasons. Now we wanted to be that platform that gives distribution and to many of these temples which have historical and cultural significance, where the cost of coming online is not in lakhs, it's in a few thousands. So that innovation we did for quite some time, where we said that, hey, through just a mobile phone, how can a temple come online, connect with its audience, connect it with visitors who are able to go there and people who would want to go there, and sort of form a daily engagement for those people. And if we're able to achieve that, if the temple would want, we could bring many of their services online. So that platform creation we did, we demoed it through a few temples, and the data to the people and authorities. And India is changing. I think I would want to take 30 seconds to talk about how Digital India Mission and how regular dialogue around preserving heritage and culture through technology is opening people's mind. You would not believe the people who I thought would not be open. They sit with me, they listen to me and my team, and they understand how going digital will be helpful. And through that dialogue, you get the first set of people who start voicing the kind of vision you would have, and you would meet many people in this whole process who have the same kind of opinion. So I actually was very fortunate to meet a lot of people who thought that they should be built but did not have the means, who thought that they should be built, but there was not a team which was doing it with that kind of obsession and that kind of service mindset. And it's and that enabled us to find the first set of believers, and now we are doing it for the largest set of people. So we're building this platform where any temple can go online in less than 30 minutes, The infrastructure cost will not be in lakhs, but in a few thousands through a mobile phone, and they'll be able to connect to their hundreds of thousands of devotees all in one place where they could engage with them, and uh, build that community, build that audience, and and be able to do things that they would want to do with this particular audience. So it's a platform, and this distribution, and once they come online, the distribution will be through Srimandir app and whatnot. So that's how it is.
So Prashant, your vision is to kind of develop a family of apps like ByteDance. You've spoken about how you're inspired by them as well. Can you tell us a bit about the next steps and how you plan to get to that vision?
Yeah. So we'll be building a few distribution platforms. Srimandir is a distribution platform, and there'll be services. For example, we have a Chadhawa service, Puja service. We have just launched Astro. There are a few digital services that we have built. There's this personal recommendation based service that we have also developed. So there are 4 or 5 of these services that we have taken time to build based on the user feedback. And then Srimandir is one distribution platform. Um, Through data, and Srimandir is a aggregation of many use cases with a pointed hero use case, I would say. And as we are realizing that some of these use cases could be a standalone app, we would launch some of these apps in the future, but not today. Today the focus is just focus on this distribution platform and build the services. And as you build this audience, as you identify a newer set of people, you may diversify. So the Apps for Bharat name is essentially um, the broader vision. It's a 5 year, 10 year, 20 year goal that we have, that hey, can we be this platform or group of products that solve for this. So there'll be distribution platform and there'll be services, and we'll own all of them.
Awesome. Prashant, just to close our and why we call this Founders Unfiltered, what's one piece of unfiltered feedback you received in your journey as an entrepreneur that really changed your perspective about building?
One person told me, which was very interesting. It was early on in the day, where they said that hey, when you're building for the masses and you come up with very strong biases, the biases are good to start. But as you develop the product, as you go on the journey, you should never forget that you may or may not represent one out of all the people in your town. So just have that mental check at all points in time. So what often happens is I keep on telling this to my team that hey, our views and our opinion are a good starting point, but at the end of the day, it's data. It's just data.
Awesome. Prashant, thank you so much for walking us through the journey. And I think we got a lot of insights on building a product for India. Thank you so much.